this. Dan, have you at any time during the last 4 months just turned all notifications, all social media off during this?
No, and I should have. And I was a couple of times. My wife gave me that. Are you going to put your phone down? Look. And she's the nicest person in the world, but no, I should have. I like the first 3-4 weeks of this. I watched hours and hours and hours of news every day until it had I'm being dead serious. Like it had a real traumatic emotional effect on me, and I had to back off.
Sure.
And now I get an hour or two at night. And, truthfully, part of that's probably we're all one-dimensional sports people. Well, to a certain extent, right? And because there's been no sports on at night, no live sports, so you watch more news. But no, I'm glad you'll have a week off and get to enjoy the doodle. And I wish you the best of luck. I hope it goes well. So, yeah.
That's the nicest thing Shulman's ever said to me, that I'm one-dimensional.
That is actually the nicest thing I've ever said. Well, clip it off and make it your pinned tweet or something like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Rub some dirt on it and get back in.
Yeah, that's right.
Dan, I was shocked with the Guerrero news today. Not that it happened, but that it's happened so soon. What was your reaction?
I was surprised. I mean, if you had said to me at any point, a month ago, whatever, what position do you think Vladdy will be playing in 3-4 years? I probably would have said first base, but I didn't think they were going to make the move this quickly. I didn't get down to Dunedin in March before things shut down. I think you were down there, Arash. And back then the talk was third base. We're going to put him out there at third base. And now it's first base. And it sounds semi-permanent. Charlie said first base, DH, and some third base, as if, and maybe they will put him back there. But it would be pure speculation on my part to say why they changed their minds. Charlie has said things like put him in the best position to succeed, put the team in the best position to win. Like we knew yesterday, Travis Shaw is a better defensive third baseman than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's also today a better defensive first baseman than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So I don't know if this means Vladdy didn't do what he was supposed to do during the last 4 months. I have no idea. And I doubt we're really going to get anybody speaking on the record about why they made the change. I do think they hope this frees him up mentally. Albert Pujols started as a third baseman. Jim Thome started as a third baseman. Miguel Cabrera started as a third baseman. And they all went on to extraordinary careers as first basemen. So that's great. The only thing I will say is, first, this is the big leagues. First base is not just the place you stick the kid who can't field and say it'll be okay. It's more intricate and subtle than that. He's got to hold runners. He's got to take relays. He's got to trail runners. He needs good footwork. There's a lot going on over there. He's at first base tonight in the inter-squad game. At least they're making the decision now and not 12 days from now. And I think they'll get a look at him in these inter-squad games. But it's interesting that Charlie mentioned DHing too. I think we're going to see Vladdy rolling through. If they play 60 games, maybe he's the DH 20-25 times. Who knows? And yeah. I don't know if they're sending a message or doing what's best for the team or doing what's best for him. But it's done.
Dan Shulman joining us here on Tim. The one thing that adds more to this for me, and I've been listening to Arash, and I've kind of had the two sides of my brain working, trying to figure out why it's done. But if there's no real expectations for this year, and I don't know what the expectations are for such a young team in a 60-game schedule, it adds to the intrigue of this move when you consider that you could have easily left Vladdy at third and gone through the bumps and bruises of it for 60 games or 50 that he would play and say, we're just dealing with the continued growth of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at third.
But I think there are expectations. I think they feel, Tim, that because it's a 60-game season, that maybe they can catch lightning in a bottle with these young guys, get off to a good start, and maybe make a run at the postseason. I think they... Ross Atkins said it on our air a couple of days ago, I believe. He said something like, quote, our chances are objectively better now than they were. And I think one of the things that he meant is that it's a shorter season. And crazy stuff happens in a smaller sample size. And I think they think that they've got a chance. Some players have opted out, none of theirs. And I think they feel they've got a chance. And I agree with this. it's 60 games. I think you go for it. You put the pedal to the metal right out of the gate. You try to win every game you can until the standings make it obvious then you don't have a chance. And are they a developing team or are they a go-for-it team? Normally, I would have said development this year, but given that it's a shorter season, I think there's a feeling, and again, we don't really have access to a lot of people. We can't ask as many questions of people as we normally do, but I think there's a feeling that maybe, they've got a chance to scare and surprise some people this year.
Just some breaking news from everybody. Elliot Friedman tweeting out, hearing both the NHL and the PA have voted to accept CBA return to play protocols. So it looks like it is a go for the NHL. Again, Elliot Friedman just tweeting out moments ago, within the last 5 minutes, hearing both the NHL and NHLPA have voted to accept CBA return to play protocols.
Well, here we go. So when are we going to hear about Toronto and Edmonton officially? I guess that becomes the next question. Yeah. Dan, what are the biggest challenges for this Blue Jay team beyond starting pitching this year? Is it the bullpen? Is it trying to just figure out how to get as many healthy arms going as possible?
Yeah, I mean, they do have the benefit of the expanded roster at the beginning, like everybody. So if there are 30 players, my guess is they have 14 position players and 16 pitchers. So that means 11 relievers, assuming they just go with a five-man rotation. So I think it's how they decide to use their pitching. Like, do they have piggyback guys? Like if Trent Thornton is a starter in the rotation, does he go 3-4 innings and then Anthony Kay comes in and goes 3 innings? Is Ryan Barucki a piggyback guy? Is Shun Yamaguchi a piggyback guy? Do they try to do that? And then late in games, I guess the great unknown is in front of Ken Giles, who are going to be the guys to pitch the high leverage innings. Will it be Anthony Bass? Will it be Rafael Dolis? Will it be Jordan Romano, who apparently was throwing and is throwing very well? Go Markham boy. So I think that's a big question, is how they line up the bullpen. And then again, I think, we talked about the development of the young guys. This is first full year, but second season for Vladdy, for Bichette, for Biggio. And will they still be the young developing guys, or are we going to look back in 2.5 months, assuming there's a season, and say, those are the best players on the team? Like, those are the 3 or 4, right. Put Riel in there too. So they're kind of a fascinating group because in some ways you know a lot about them, and in other ways, so many things could change with this team between now and then. I think this season is, they'd love to make the playoffs, but I think this season is really important just to put them in a place where they feel they can be really good next year, that they walk into camp not hoping they'll be good, but really believing they'll be good, and maybe entice a free agent or two into feeling that way in the offseason.
It's interesting you mentioned Romano, because in the 3 conversations we've had with Charlie Montoyo, the beat folk, either conference call or Zoom call, he is the only player, Dan, I believe, that Charlie has pointed out, not Bichette, not Biggio, not Pearson, not Ryu. He was raving, I think it was yesterday, about Romano with his velocity, and basically hinted that 8th inning job could very well be his.
Yeah, so and it's another example of how quickly things can change. Romano was like a Rule 5 pick, right, by Texas, and then was returned to the Blue Jays. He was a starting pitcher, then he was down in the minors, then he came up and had a couple of unbelievable appearances, and all of a sudden it was, they'll trade Giles and Romano will be the closer. And then he got caught in a roster thing, so he got sent down for a while. Then he came back and he wasn't as healthy, he wasn't throwing as hard. Like, all of that happened in a few months. So his story is still to be written, but you're right. I've been on those Zooms, and Charlie's gone out of his way. Like, it's not like the question was, how do you think Jordan Romano is pitching? The question was, who have you really noticed? And Jordan Romano was the first guy that he mentioned, and everybody's going to get opportunities. Starters, generally speaking, unless you're Matt Shoemaker, who apparently is a cyborg, are not going to be going that deep into games this year. So even if it's a 16-man pitching staff, there will be opportunities to pitch innings, and I still think Romano is squarely in their plans. And, let's push aside the who's the closer in 2 years conversation. Let's let him go out and get some big league innings under his belt and see how he does.
Dan Shulman joining us here on Tim and Sid with Arash Madani in for Sid Sixero, who returns next week. So the one thing that we haven't talked about, and maybe fittingly, is the outfield. How do you see that playing out?
So I'll tell you what I know. A bunch of them flew into Toronto last night, and they took BP today. Grichuk is here, McKinney is here, Fisher is here, Alford is here. Kevin Biggio was also in the group taking BP. So we can confirm those 5 guys are here. They will start playing in inter-squad games tomorrow. I have not seen Lourdes Gurriel. And again, in this COVID age, if you say, where's Lourdes Gurriel, you're not likely to get an answer. We don't know. We know that one player, who we don't know who he is, tested positive, and that a bunch of other guys stayed behind to get tested because they were in contact with that person. So the bunch of other guys are the Grichuk and the McKinney in that group. I don't know where Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is, and I don't know what the situation is. But if Gurriel is okay, I expect them to start the season with Gurriel in left, Grichuk in center, and Teoscar Hernandez in right. I think at times you would see Gurriel and Hernandez DHing. I think they're going to rotate guys through the DH spot. I expect Derek Fisher to be on the opening day roster. I expect Anthony Alford to be on the opening day roster. Again, you've got an expanded roster, right? So, sure. But I think that might only buy you one more spot for a position player and maybe 3 more pitchers. I think that's the way most teams will go. But Fisher and Alford are out of options. Like, all that stuff still exists. It is COVID, but all that stuff is still there. So, also Jonathan Davis is on the injured list. No reason given. Again, perhaps informed speculation. Maybe he was one of the guys last week who tested positive. If Billy McKinney's got options, the tiebreaker goes to the guy who doesn't have options, right? So I think we'll see Fisher and Alford on the team. Remember, and this might be silly, but remember the rule with a runner at second base in extra innings. I think the way the rule works is the guy who made the last out in the last inning is the runner to start at second base in extra innings, but there's no rule that says you can't pinch run. Yeah. So a guy like Alford and even Fisher, but especially Alford, not to say that's all that he'll do, but I think, teams are talking about having a guy with real speed as a weapon that they can use in extra innings. And again, if Gurriel DHs, you can, if it's a lefty on the mound, you can throw Alford out there. If it's a righty on the mound, you can throw Fisher out there. So I expect both of those guys to be on the team. And we may, listen, Biggio could wind up in the outfield at times too, right? His versatility is there. And if Joe Panik, who I think is going to be on the team, forces his way into the lineup, his most natural spot is second. Kevin Biggio could become a super utility guy as soon as this year. Who knows?
Whew, there's a lot there, man.
There's a lot going on.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, there'd be no math. I feel like it's math and puzzles all at once right now.
Fitting pieces, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but that's part of the fun of the sport. And again, the world is upside down right now, and there are way bigger things going on. But if they're going to play, we may as well try to have fun with it. And I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot to talk about. And, you guys have broken a Toronto media record by getting 13 minutes into an interview without saying the words Nate and Pearson consecutively. Right. So I want to congratulate you on that.
Wow. So when does he win the Cy Young Award, Shulman?
I think he already did.
He already did. Okay.
They were going to call it the Pearson Cup, but apparently there are some copyright issues from something in our past with that. So he is pitching tomorrow, by the way. I don't know how long and whether he's pitching for the Blue Jays 1 or Blue Jays 2. I'm not sure, but Charlie told us today on his daily Zoom that Nate Pearson will pitch tomorrow. The only downside of that is, as you guys know, we're doing inter-squad games Tuesday and Wednesday, like on television, on Sportsnet. So Pearson obviously won't pitch in those games. But excited to see him pitch tomorrow. And whenever he comes to the big leagues, I'm sure there will be a lot of interest in him.
No kidding.
Danny boy, always appreciate you catching up. I'll send you a picture of my doodle once we get it.
Did you settle on a name? I know that was...
No, we still have, and there were Timmins citizens that added to the equation that the whole family was looking at. I think we had like 750 responses to the name, and trust me, it will not be Sid. Sid will not be the name.
Can I give you a couple suggestions?
Oh, Shulman, top rope. Here we go.
How about Aaron or Rodgers? One of those two.
How about Jordan or Love? How about one of those two?
Hey, don't worry. Dan's used to ditching quarterbacks and then coming back with a better one. So I think he's good with that.
I tell you what, if number 12 ends up in purple, that's it. I give up. I had to go through it once. I am not going through it again.
That's
not
fair.
Detroit,
right?
man.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right, Danny. Be well, stay well, and we'll
Thank
talk.
you, guys.
We'll talk down the road.
Yeah. Bye-bye.